All right, all right, all right. Welcome to the Tuesday night principled Chiro broadcast from DE and Band of Brothers. I'm Dr. Brian Moriarty, your esteemed co-MC for tonight's exciting call with Dr. Peter Amlinger, and I'm joined by my other co-MC. What's your name?
Emma.
And Emma, what do you love?
DE.
Good answer. I love D too. That was awesome. Thanks for being here, Emma. I know this is a really special call with Uncle Peter, so you wanted to be on, so I think that's great. And guys, speaking of Uncle Peter and DE here, Kat, let's get some dates up there for our upcoming Dynamic Essentials conferences. There they are. We've got one coming up in just a month, January 12th to the 15th in Clearwater, and then we're back in Sarasota in April. Then we're in Atlanta for July and October. Go to lifede.com to register. And guys, if you are coming, we want you to register. We just found out that there are more rooms booked than registrations. So everybody's booked their hotel room, which is good, or a lot of people have. But we need you to register so we know how many people are going to be in the room. So if you haven't registered, go to lifede.com and get registered. Also, we've got, you can still get a room. The room block is over. You missed that if you haven't gotten a room yet. But if you contact Kat, she could probably still get you a room or at least put you on a wait list that will probably end up in a room. But if you haven't made your travel plans, you probably should do that now. So contact Kat for a room, go on the site and get registered. We were just talking before, and Peter Amlinger is going to be at this DE. He's going to be making his DE return. Now, as of right now, he cannot travel here. So, but I'm putting it out there. Innate's dropping it. Peter's putting it out there. Peter is going to be at the Clearwater DE. So if you want to see the return of Peter Amlinger after, God, what has been 3+ years, come to the Clearwater DE. This is going to be an epic one. There's going to be other incredible speakers too, so we really would love for you to be there. Last weekend was the GCC Casino Night and annual meeting. I was honored to be asked to speak at it, and me and my wife Laura and Eddie Martinez and Josh Freemeyer, our FCS officers, went up. And I just want to thank the GCC for throwing a great event, a great casino night, class operation all the way. And we decided to join forces and made a $50,000 donation to Matt McCoy's organization, the Foundation for Vertebral Subluxation Research. And that's going to fund a great research grant on chiropractic. So it was an exciting weekend, and I just want to thank the GCC and Kat and Dan and Drew and Lieberman and all of them for having us. You're just getting comfy back here, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Second thing, in February, Saturday Night Live is going to be making its return for the FCS. And our speaker tonight is going to be headlining a card. It's going to be Peter Amlinger and Dan 2, the return of FCS SNL in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So Saturday, February 11th, hold the date. More details to come, but since he's our speaker tonight, I wanted to announce that he will be there. Again, we're dropping it out there. Peter will be in the States again. Now for our speaker, who needs very little introduction, longtime DE speaker, longtime DE attendee. He's had a significant effect on my life, on my family's life. He's just an incredible guy. This is one of those ones that you never want to miss when Peter's speaking. He's been up there in Canada, fighting it out, tooth and nail. They're in a war zone up there, guys. And I think about this guy a lot, and I cannot wait to see him at Clearwater DE and give this guy the biggest hug because he stands for principle, and he is just an incredible, incredible guy. So I'm excited to hear him all the way from Mississauga. I believe it's Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. Give it up for the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Peter Amlinger. Take it away, brother. Love and appreciate you.
Well, thank you very much for that lengthy but awesome introduction, and I'm honored that to know that I've had an effect on your family in a positive way, and I'm honored to be here tonight. We are certainly holding intention that we're going to be back stateside in 2023, and I'm putting it out there for January. So the information we have is that we will know January 8th. So just hold positive intention, and the people with the greatest vibration win. So let's remember that. And I have a few things rattling around right now, and I think I want to start with this, which is one of my favorite quotes. If you've heard me speak, it's possible you've heard me read this before. And I'm going to read it, and then we'll come back to it at the end of the talk because I think it's pertinent. And it reads like this: "At this very hour, the world is seething with unrest in its search for not a specialist in this, that, or the other, but a specialist in humankind as such, who views humanity as combined of spirit, soul, and body, and recognizes that the interaction of the three is so close that they can never touch one without touching all three." And I believe that this quote has never been more meaningful and more pertinent than today. And I think that the world right now at this hour is looking for exactly that type of specialist. And when I look at our principle in its entirety, I believe that principled chiropractic, that chiropractor or those chiropractors who check people for subluxation and remove them to optimize the person's expression of life is what the world is looking for right now. And in my view, that is a DE chiropractor. So, and at the same time, when I look around my community, my circle, when I observe things on Facebook, it brings up a couple of questions for me, and because we're coming, traditionally it seems that this is the time of year where people start looking ahead and setting goals, and I counsel people and really strongly suggest that you cannot set goals until you take inventory. You have to know where you're at first, and that doesn't. And I'm not talking about knowing where you're at by looking at your numbers or looking at how much money you made last year. I think you got to drill down a little deeper than that. And so I'm going to throw another quote at you right now as we drop into this, because I observe this. So the quote reads like this, and it's anonymous, or I don't know who wrote it, but I like it. "Real growth is when you start checking and correcting yourself. Instead of blaming others, you take your power back by being responsible for your life." Well, we could edit that and add to it, and it's not instead of blaming others. How about instead of relying on others? Instead of looking to others for direction, how about taking your power back and looking within for direction in your life? How about seeking direction from above down, inside out for your life? Because our principle in its entirety is an above down, inside out principle. And most chiropractors that I observe think it's above, down, inside, out. And I'm talking above, down, inside, out. So when we really explore our principle and appreciate that our principle begins with the existence of universal intelligence as the major premise states, that's big, that's a mouthful, right? And we know when we study in Stevenson's textbook, The Qualities of Universal Intelligence, that it's infinite, it's existed always, it's infinite, it's indefinitely superior. It's never made a mistake. It always works for the highest good. Having these qualities makes it God. And so it all starts with God. And then as we study further, we know and we learn that universal intelligence um, is unlimited, but our perception of it is limited, and we can only expand our awareness of it through experience. So we are set into these bodies to experience. And as we experience life, then we appreciate the presence of this intelligence on a greater and grander level. And it goes on to tell us that living things are endowed with an innate intelligence, which is separate from, yet not separate from, universal. It has all the properties and characteristics of universal, meaning that the intelligence within you, the intelligence within every person you put your hands on, the intelligence within every tree, the intelligence within every fish, every moose, every pigeon, every, you name it, is infinite in its potential. And we possess that intelligence. Our people possess that intelligence. And the mission of innate intelligence in a living thing is to maintain that being in a state of active organization, which means it helps us adapt and connect and interact with our environment, both our inner environment and our external environment. As Dr. Santo used to say, the mission of universal intelligence is to maintain harmony and balance within the cosmos. And therefore, the mission of innate intelligence is to maintain harmony and balance within the individual in which it resides, not just with respect to their relationship with themselves, but their relationship with the Creator and their relationship with, in fact, all of creation. And when we look at the way this flows and we think about the fact that we all come from spirit, we come from the Great Spirit, the great mystery, as the indigenous peoples referred to it, Source. We all emanate from Source. We're an expression of Source. And we start as first spirit. And from spirit, we express our physical being, and we express our emotional being and our mental being. And so that everything about us then is an expression of spirit, and we can't separate. So even when we go back to this quote I started with, they're so close because they're not separate. They're all expressions from the same source. And so when we realize this, it should make it easier for us to say, yeah, I am going to take my power back. I am going to become responsible for my life. I am going to become inner directed in all areas of my life. I'm going to learn to be aware of this innate. I'm going to learn to trust it. I'm going to be humble and just follow its direction and be obedient to its will. And that's what it's all about. And at the same time, as we do that and we become inner guided and we start to experience and appreciate this intelligence on greater and greater levels and trust it more, it's just going to show up on a bigger and bigger level for us. And it's going to give us the opportunity then to go out and serve more. And so the first inventory question I would like you all to consider tonight is this. In the past year, have you limited the unlimited? Have you limited this intelligence? Have you limited the potential within people by the stories you're telling in your office, by the stories you're telling yourself? I have to, I taught Stu Bittman and I are good friends. And when we started doing some experientials together and whatnot, we promised one another we wouldn't become grumpy like Sigafus and Dick at times. And I don't think I'm doing very well at it. I'm getting grumpy. as I get a little bit older. And so my observation is this: we have this infinite principle that we work with, this life principle that says every human being we put our hands on has an infinite potential. That every time we remove a subluxation and reconnect that person fully to their innate intelligence and to the Creator, anything is possible within their life experience. Healing on any level is possible within their life experience. Mental healing, physical healing, emotional healing, generational healing. And I'm going to tell you something, it doesn't take a nervous system to do it. We work through the nervous system on a level, but it's bigger than that. Our principle is bigger than the nervous system. And I'm starting to get frustrated. It seems like people read a book or take a course or read a research paper or read a journal, and all of a sudden they're hot on something and they found the new thing in chiropractic, the thing that's going to set chiropractic apart. And so, now everyone's interested in the vagus nerve, and they're sitting around in ice baths thinking that's going to reset their nervous system. Well, you can take all the cold baths you want, and it's not going to set an atlas subluxation. Just not going to happen. So we have to appreciate how big our principle is, and I've been guilty at times of limiting the unlimited, of moving away from the potential business and talking to people about their symptoms or about a condition, or, oh, there's a limitation to matter. Well, yeah, of course there is. It's part of our principle, but we don't get to decide when that limit's been reached. It's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to check the person, clear them if they're subluxated, and keep them clear over time to see what their innate can do for them. And our other job is to educate them about the infinite nature of this innate and the potential within them, so they don't limit themselves. And so I want you to think about how you communicate. I want you to go into your offices tomorrow and walk around and look at what you got up on the walls. Are you talking about potential? Are you talking about life? Are you talking about expression? Or have you got pictures of degenerative disc disease on your wall, or osteoarthritis, or a crooked spine? BJ had the world's largest collection of abnormal and normal spines. I've been in practice 36 years. I've had my hands on tons of spines that looked horrible on x-ray. But when I put my hands on those spines and put a force in that innate could use to restore the flow of mental impulse from where it's generated to where it was needed, those people healed. Their lives were transformed. And when I went and relooked at the x-rays or retook x-rays, they didn't change a damn bit. But the person's life did. So we have to get clear on what we're looking for, what we're clearing out, why we're clearing it out, and we have to make sure our communication's congruent with what we're looking for. And you have to take responsibility for that. Claim responsibility for your life, for your practice. And if you're comfortable in that model, then I'm not asking you to change it. But my greatest joy is teaching people that when I remove the interference in them, not in their nervous system, in them, when I remove the interference between them and their Creator, their life will transform. Their relationship with themselves will be better. Their relationship with their Creator will be better. Their relationship with creation, with their community will be better. The most popular sign in our office is, "I apologize for the things I said before I got adjusted." People love that sign because they recognize its truth. They're just not as good They're not nice people when they're subluxated. And so I want you to sit back and think, have I limited the unlimited in how I've presented our principle over the past year? And if you have, don't beat yourself up. Just resolve to be better, take ownership, and start becoming congruent. If you need to read more to understand the principle more, read more. If you need to meditate more so that you can become more interdirected, meditate more. If you need to change chiropractors so you can get it under, DE type chiropractic care, change chiropractors. Do what your innate guides you to do. If you need to take stuff off your walls and put new stuff up, do it. If you need to write a letter to your practice explaining what chiropractic really is, do it. Whatever you're moved to do after we're done tonight, just go and do it. Take an action step. So that's point one, or question one. And don't hang your hat, like think before you leap into the next new theory and whatnot. So, for instance, if you think about the vagus nerve starts somewhere and it ends somewhere in the body. And at the end of the vagus nerve is an organ of some type, a heart, a lung, a gut. And so if you start talking about the vagus nerve, you're going to end up talking about hearts, lungs, and guts, not life. That should be a clue. I had this little boy, you've probably heard about him if we've known each other long enough. He's, I don't know, 14 years old now or something like that, but he got stuck in the birth canal during birth, and they pulled so hard to get him out of the birth canal, they pulled his phrenic nerve right off the cord, off the cord. So the right side of his diaphragm was completely paralyzed. It did not move. The imaging showed complete avulsion of the phrenic nerve. He was hypoxic. He was blue. They had to put him on an infant CPAP unit to try and get him oxygenated. He had a massively rapid breathing rate. He couldn't keep any food down because, as we all know, the diaphragm forms a functional valve. So they put a feeding tube in him because he was losing weight rapidly. And he still couldn't keep most of what they put into the tube down. He would retch and puke it up. So they put him on drugs for GERD, which makes like 0 sense. And after 6 weeks in Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto, the best children's hospital in Canada, they came to the mom and said, we don't know what to do with him. We could placate his diaphragm, pin it down where it's supposed to be, but we don't know what that would do. And mom said, well, if you do that, it'll never heal. And they're like, listen, mom, it ain't going to heal. This is his life. And it's a powerful muscle. So the diaphragm on the left is going to pull and twist and distort his spine, and your boy's going to have a lot of problems. And he had a paralyzed right arm as well, Klumpke's palsy or whatever the hell it's called. And so one of the father's co-workers said, here's what you need to know. Your child's ability to heal is far greater than you've been led to believe. There's this thing called a subluxation, and a lot of kids are born with one. And my chiropractor sees a crap ton of kids. Maybe you should take them to get checked. So they showed up in my office on a Friday morning, a November Friday morning, 14, 15 years ago, however old he is. 6 weeks old, I hear this horrible retching, don't know what's going on. People falling off the light fixtures, the clinic's so busy. And I walk into room 3 and this little guy's hanging in his mother's arm, and he's little and he's blue. And there's a feeding tube dangling in the air and he's retching. And I get the story and I put him down on the table and I check him, and his right leg is pulling up way short. You can almost see his atlas sticking out the side of his neck. And I adjusted his atlas and said, bring him back Monday for the doctor's report. And mom brought him back Monday. I'm like, how'd it go over the weekend? He stopped retching. We took him off the drugs for GERD. And we kept checking him, kept adjusting him. 4 weeks in, I'm like, I kind of feel like I'm seeing movement in the right side of his thorax. And when I put my hand on it, I feel movement. And 4 weeks after he started chiropractic care, he went and had a repeat ultrasound done at Sick Children's Hospital, which showed perfect diaphragmatic excursion and perfect synchrony with the left side. Perfect. No more retching. He pulled the feeding tube out on his own at 2 weeks. He started to move his arm. He grew. By 3 months of age, he was back on track, hitting all his milestones. At 6 months, he went down to the brachial plexus clinic at Sick Children's Hospital. If there's a brachial plexus clinic, it must tell us something. And the neurologist walked in, and Mom said, he's fine, he's healed. And the neurologist said, you know what? Mothers see what they want to see. I'm the expert. And almost if on cue, Michael raised his right arm up. And the neurologist looked at him and looked at Mom and said, I look like quite the ass right now, don't I? And he's a perfectly normal boy. Now, the phrenic nerve was completely avulsed. So I didn't restore the flow through the phrenic nerve. I restored life into his body. And life did the rest. That's the principle. We have a colleague up here, Frenchie, had a baby back in the day, was born with all sorts of difficulties, and they said his brain never developed. And Frenchie started adjusting, and all of a sudden he started developing and growing and reaching his milestones and stuff. And he went down to Sick Children's Hospital for a follow-up, and he's completely normal. So what did innate use there? Like, do you understand how big innate is? And so as DE chiropractors, Sid knew how big it was, because the dynamic essential, it's about our consciousness when we go into our office. It's about our consciousness when we put our hands on people. It's about letting innate run our hands and let innate put the words on our tongue instead of some script. And it's about clearing people out and keeping them clear and reading each people as if they're an individual person and adjusting them according to their needs, not some playbook that you're supposed to memorize. And when you do that and you start talking the principle and talk about restoring life, Sid talked about revivification. Let's start talking about revivification, not in 23, tomorrow. Start tomorrow. Going to revivify you. Going to restore life in your body. And the rest is up to you and the Creator. So that's the first inventory question. The second inventory question is quite simple. Do you love enough? Do you love yourself enough? Our job, our big job, each and every one of us, is to work on loving ourselves the way the Creator loves us. And as we become more loving towards ourselves, we can then become more loving of others. So we have to take time every day just getting quiet and plugging in and letting the love flow and claiming the love for ourselves, and then let it emanate from us, and we share it everywhere we go, and we let love be our master. And if you're walking around judging, if you're walking around spreading your opinion, you know, I have a person who's she says she's in the office. She's challenged by some of the choices her father has made, and she says, "I respect his right to choose." And I'm like, "Well, if you did, you wouldn't be pissed off at him for the choices he made." So Was that harsh? I was actually loving on her when I said that because she really needs to get that to move forward in her life. So love is a yin yang thing between praise and reprimand. And sometimes we just have to be honest with people and say, listen, you got to check yourself here. Your thoughts are holding you back. And just teach them that there's a better way. There's one of my favorite quotes that I keep close to my heart is that the only attributes an effect can have are the ones that you give it. So I have a patient and she's going to be defending her PhD. She's a PhD candidate and in neuroscience, her specialty is the cerebellum. She loves chiropractic. She's all over Joe Dispenza's work. She's disgusted by the corruptness in the scientific community. But she's coming in the office and I taught her how to breathe and how to go into the sacred silence and then envision herself the moment after she successfully defends her PhD. And she's latched onto it and she's just finding a new space to work from because the way the program works, it's stress, 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 beat the candidate down, I'm like, don't let him in. Work from this space. She defends this Friday. She was in this morning. She's like, I'm stressed. I'm like, why are you stressed? And I shared the quote, the only attributes an effect has are the ones that you give it. So you're giving this experience you're in the attribute of stressful. She said, yeah, you're right. It could just be really exciting. And I'm like, there you are. It could be an opportunity for you to show the expert that you are because you know more than anybody in the world right now about your thesis, which is a new piece of research about the cerebellum. She's like, yeah, you're right. And those are all examples of walking through our lives from a point of self-love instead of self-loathing, correcting the self-talk so that we can move through the day with ease and centered, not moving from our center. I was talking with my Taekwondo master in the past month, after a sparring session, and him and I sparred, and one of the other masters said, that's what sparring's supposed to look like. Because it was like a dance. It was like, I was thrilled to receive the compliment, but I said to my master, who I was sparring with, sir, you just look bored all the time, though. I wish you would give me something. He goes, you have to train yourself to be that way. Because if you drill me and I react to that, it moves me from my center and then I'm vulnerable. If I drill you and I react to that, it moves me from my center and then I'm vulnerable again. So I've trained myself not to react to strikes. Bruce Lee said, have to move through life with an empty mind and from a point of neutrality. That's where love lives. Love lives in the eternal now. It knows no past, it knows no future, it just knows the now. And so we start a day by going into the sacred silence, into the eternal now, and we carry that forward into our day and we serve from there. And tying the first question and the second question together, we love ourselves. We love the Creator. We love ourselves the way the Creator loves us. We love the principle. And so we express our love for the principle by saying true to it and by communicating it honestly. by constantly working to expand our appreciation and our awareness of it, by constantly thinking about ways and metaphors that we can use to illustrate the principle and its magnificence to our community, by demonstrating the principle's existence in everything, in all things, at all times, in all ways, by mastering the art of detecting interference to the flow of life and its removal through the chiropractic adjustment, by working at becoming unconditionally loving in our relationships, knowing it's an above down, inside out process, by accepting the great mystery, God, as our source, our support, and our supply, and nothing else. Knowing that that's true for everyone, that we're not the source of somebody's healing. God might work through us to facilitate their healing, but their healing comes from source. When we have a problem, the solution might come through another person, but it's God sending it through that other person. When we sit back and appreciate the abundance in our life, it might look like it comes from different streams or from people, but it doesn't. It comes through people, perhaps, through circumstances, but it's God at the helm all the time. And so, since God is love, the more we snuggle up to God and improve our relationship with God, the more loving we become. And we really take the power back into our life when we just let God run it. And once we appreciate, if we really pause and reflect upon the fact that we are a spirit, mind, body, and that we can't even separate them, attempting to separate them is a reductionistic thought. So when we look out at the world and see the separation, when we look at the world, when I look at the world, I see separation. Everything I see is a result of people's separation from source. Whether it be by programming through the media, or through the government, or through marketing agencies, or through their own self-judgment or guilt or fear or shame or whatever it is, it's all separation. And when we consider the quote that we started with, which was written in 1934 by a gentleman named Alexander Cannon in a book called The Invisible Influence. You can find it where I did on the title page of volume 18, Subluxation Specific, Adjustment Specific, as we consider this quote. At this very hour, the world is seething with unrest in its search for not a specialist in this, that, or the other, but a specialist in mankind as such, who views man as a combined of spirit, soul, and body, and recognizes that the interaction of the three is so close that they can never touch one without touching all three. So I contend that today in 2022, this quote is more accurate than it was in 1934. The answer for humanity is still the same: principled chiropractic, DE chiropractic, applied in a pure, unadulterated way. It's the answer. It reconnects people. It removes the interference between that person and source. And then source can pour into them so they can be all that they're supposed to be, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, in their relationships, financially, professionally, you name it. they will be able to present their unique genius to the world once they're reconnected. And that's really what we do all day, every day in our DE offices as we revitalize humanity through specific chiropractic adjustments as needed, where needed, when needed. And that's all I got tonight. Thanks very much. I love and appreciate y'all.
Peter,
Brian,
that was an amazing call, my friend.
thank you, sir.
Top notch. If I'm being honest, I thought it was one of the best talks you've ever given. I'm just gonna say it. And I've heard you a lot, but that one just kind of ripped right in the middle of my chest and gave me some things to work on. And judging from the flood of comments coming through the bottom there, I think it resonated with a lot of people. So thank you so much for that amazing, amazing message tonight.
Much appreciated, humbled, and thank God for using me as a vessel.
Absolutely, brother. Great stuff tonight. I hope and pray we see you in Clearwater in January.
I see us there.
Okay, guys, that wraps it up for tonight's Tuesday night Principled Chiro broadcast from DE and Band of Brothers. We will see you guys next Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Have a great, great night. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Brian. Night, everyone.